At the centre of this broken city, a hive of activity. Thousands of volunteers have come south, and now they manhandle the donations of clothing, prepare meals on a grand scale, and provide for those who are homeless or too frightened to go back into crumbling flats. At the centre of it all, a professor from Istanbul, a natural organiser using the activists of his far-left political party to fill the gaps left by a government stunned by this tragedy.
We decided to come here and to help the people because we knew that the government is totally, unorganized on the issue. They couldn't mobilize the agencies and the army and all the, emergency administration of the government. When you go to rescue area, you say, is there anyone there? Normally, you look for a sound. And all the buildings, there are many sounds. They were, the sounds came from many buildings, and we were very few at that moment. Totally. The system was collapsed. But still, day after day, hour after hour, more people came for the rescue. Still not enough, and too late.
And the professors' movement is just part of a national relief effort that transcends differences here.
So will the quakes, as levelers of lives and buildings, also level social differences here in a lasting way? Or will the tragedy act to exacerbate political and other tensions? It's an enormous question, and one that many people we speak to here aren't yet even ready to address during a period of national mourning.
This was one of the worst hit streets in central Antakya. Although someone was found alive on the day we filmed, it is now largely an effort to recover the dead. And among the helpers, malign actors moved too. A suspected looter was led away by police. Locals told us that the army had orders to shoot looters on sight, not a claim we could prove, but there was a significant military presence in the city, designed to reassure perhaps. But evidence too of a government trying to catch up after an initial absence from many of the worst hit places.
There was some other disadvantage during that disaster. The weather was very big at the disadvantage. In the winter conditions, the roads, highways were closed, independent of the earthquake. But of course, that you can see many complaints about what this was, insufficient because they couldn't go in the second day or in the first day. That was impossible, of course, to cope at the same time and simultaneously in thousands places, and to make such an interventions to that places was impossible, of course.
Head north and you see signs of a movement that's been going on for the past week. Millions are heading out, and the cost of rebuilding lost homes is estimated at $6 billion. So the economic and political repercussions will be profound. 1,000 kilometers away in Istanbul, the grief and initial shock is giving way to a consideration of those consequences. Turkey, already struggling with high inflation, is heading for elections in May, and President Erdogan's government was suffering in the polls even before the disaster.
The situation on the ground is dismal, and people are outraged, and also we are all mourning, and it's a calamity that we are not going to get over very soon. The region has lost at least 10 to 20 years. But most of the discussions are going to be around the accountability of the government's actions, of the policy decisions. Most of the discussions are going to be about the de-coordination, or why an earlier an earlier attempt at alleviating the situation was not there.
The president has toured the earthquake zone, offering condolences to the bereaved and encouragement to rescuers. There's evidence too of how public anger is being channeled. Some property developers have been arrested as people blame shoddy construction for the high death toll. But the government can't completely avoid responsibility for that.
It is an unfortunate thing. I cannot say anything to, for example, defend or to say something to defend this situation. This situation is also referring to some corruption, of course.
Isn't that the responsibility of the government, having been in power for so long?
The control mechanism should be set much more, solid. The contractors, it's more than the contractors, the private sector is very, or private sector should be controlled much carefully in this.
Back in the disaster zone, Iskenderun is trying to get back on its feet. There are plans afoot for semi-permanent camps for the displaced, and talk among government supporters about postponing elections planned for May. I asked opposition MP Suzan Sahin whether President Erdogan is heading for defeat.
Absolutely. Our people have been going through a lot of pain. There is serious injustice in my country. Democracy has been curtailed here. The mentality has changed. The presidential system is not suitable for our society. We are creating more successful solutions in order to make decisions by negotiation and by majority. We call it a one-man regime, and the presidential system is not suitable for the structure of our country. It creates a lot of problems.
After the quake, then the reckoning. There'll be so many challenges to Turkey during the coming months, and if the elections do go ahead, a chance also for the public to give its own verdict on who best to rebuild.